Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're going to objectively unpack some incredibly fascinating historical doctrines and apocryphal narratives surrounding the descendants of Cain. We'll be looking directly at early teachings and historical texts that map out a really complex story of ancient talents, divine promises, and a shadowy underground fraternity.
It really makes you wonder, right? What actually was the ultimate fate of Cain and his people? It starts out in these early historical texts as a deeply abstract theological concept, actually evolves into a dark, action-driven history. We're talking about a story filled with ancient artisans, secret oaths, betrayal, and a massive fall from power.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to structure today's explainer into 6 quick parts: spirits in the pre-existence, the promise of redemption, talents of the seed, the secret Mahan society, Lamech's exile, and finally, the fate of Cain.
Starting right off with Section 1, Spirits in the Pre-existence.
To really understand the narrative of Cain's descendants, we first have to rewind, like way back to early church teachings regarding the time before they were even born. There was a specific debate about exactly why this group faced certain historical priesthood restrictions, and there were 2 competing ideas floating around. One was the neutral spirits theory, which suggested they were postponed from receiving blessings simply because they remained neutral during the Great War with Lucifer in the pre-existence. But, according to Joseph Smith, this was actually false doctrine. Brigham Young later clarified that they were definitely not neutral in heaven because, as he put it, all spirits took sides.
Moving right along to Section 2, the promise of redemption. Now, while early texts do outline specific restrictions placed upon this group, they equally highlight an eventual promise. Brigham Young explained that while a mark was placed upon Cain's seed, it absolutely wasn't permanent. The decree stated this would remain until the seed of Abel, who are the descendants of Cain's slain brother, was redeemed. Crucially, he noted that the day will come when all that race will be redeemed and possess all the blessings which we now have. So the redemption of Abel's seed directly triggers the full redemption of Cain's seed.
Furthermore, Brigham Young was super specific about how this plays out in the future. The source text asserts that the curse came in consequence of their fathers rejecting the laws of God and the power of the holy priesthood. However, the historical doctrine promised a total future restoration. When all the rest of the children receive their blessings, that curse will be removed and they will then come up and possess the priesthood.
Which brings us to Section 3, Talents of Cain's Descendants.
Here is where we shift the narrative arc away from abstract theology and look at their early history on earth. Moses chapter 5, verses 45 and 46 state that Jabal was the father of such as dwell in tents and keep cattle, his brother Jubal handled the harp and organ, and Tubal-Cain instructed in brass and iron. What this tells us is that within just 5 generations, despite the wickedness of their founding father, this community exhibited immense progress. They had unusual talents and a really strong desire to improve their condition.
I mean, just think about how incredibly diverse these talents were. You've got Jabal advancing agriculture and nomadic living as a tent maker and cattle keeper. Jubal is bringing in art and culture as a musician of the harp and organ. And Tubal-Cain is out there pushing technological boundaries as an artificer in brass and iron metallurgy. They were building a highly capable, thriving society.
All right, Section 4, the secret Mahan society.
Now, what's absolutely fascinating and kind of terrifying is what lurked beneath this flourishing, talented community. Central to this dark underbelly was the title of Master Mahan. That's the chieftain of Satan's secret society, bound by a solemn oath to protect the fraternity's dark mysteries. Early on, mostly because everyone was a close relative and fierce competition hadn't really kicked in yet, there was no record of the fraternity actually being used to murder and get gain. It was kept strictly quiet. But things change. Moses chapter 5, verse 49 states that Lamech entered into a covenant with Satan and became Master Mahan. Think about what that reveals. A massive power shift just happened. By this time, Cain had actually lost his position of leadership in the very fraternity he founded. His great-great-great-grandson, Lamech, usurped the title of Master Mahan, and under his ambitious rule, the murder cult suddenly burst into violent activity again.
That kicks off Section 5, Lamech's exile and spread.
Guys, this part reads literally like an ancient historical thriller. Let's walk through this tragic sequence of events. First, Lamech finds out that his own great-grandfather, Irad, has been revealing the secret signs and mysteries to the sons of Adam who weren't under the solemn oath. Second, in retaliation, Lamech murders Irad. But he doesn't kill him to steal his wealth, he slays him specifically for the oath's sake. Third, feeling this deep remorse, Lamech confesses the murder to his 2 wives, notably calling his great-grandfather a young man because of the extreme longevity of those days. Fourth, his wives, who are totally horrified and likely unaware of his role as Master Mahan since women weren't admitted to the society, expose him to the public. So the sheer irony here is that Lamech's single moment of weakness in confessing his crime to his wives carried the death penalty under his own Mahan oath. It forced him to flee into exile.
Moses chapter 7, verse 7 states that from this time forward, their works were abominations and began to spread among all the sons of men. This completely explains the terrifying aftermath of Lamech's exile. The incident taught the Satan worshippers to guard their secrets more carefully, sure, but it also unleashed them. The text describes the cult spreading like burning sulfurous lava from a diabolical volcano. In the subterranean darkness of the Mahan temple, murders were plotted, and in the nighttime, spoils were seized. Literally no honest man was safe. Within a few short years, it turned the people into a savage, bloodthirsty nation of predatory raiders.
Finally, Section 6, the fate of Cain.
As this secret society completely spirals out of control and spreads a blight over the earth, we kind of have to look back at its founding father. Where's Cain in all of this? Well, Moses chapter 5, verse 37 states God's decree to Cain, "A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." This dark prophecy ends up being fulfilled in a profoundly tragic way. The earth had withheld its strength from him, and he found the low road that leads straight to perdition.
Picture this. Somewhere in that land of sorrow, a great dark figure lurked among the crags and hilltops, looking down over the inhabited valleys. It was Cain. He is no longer the Master Mahan. He's no longer rich. He no longer chants the ritual of the cult he started. He is completely powerless, just reduced to a brooding figure forced to watch his curse consume his descendants from afar.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. What happens when the secret society you build outgrows your control and casts you out as a vagabond? It's a chilling reminder of the destructive nature of these ancient oaths and the way power inevitably devours itself. The apocryphal history we've explored today shows a fascinating journey from divine promises of eventual redemption to the deep, tragic irony of a founding father left as a powerless shadow on the crags. I really hope this explainer helped map out these complex historical narratives for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and as always, keep seeking out the structures behind the stories.